Yes, welcome, brothers and sisters. Welcome once again to our Saturday session. We meet every Saturday, and we meet in order to discuss the unification of the continent of Africa, our homeland, and seeing unification as part of the unfinished African revolution for the total liberation and development of the continent of Africa. And without the unification of Africa, the current structure of the world will not change for the better. The voice and the actions of the black man has been silent for a long time, as his sons and daughters, some run rampage across the world, turning truth upside down, turning justice upside down. And the father of the world, the original man, it appears, has been saying nothing and has just watched his children causing havoc around the world. So there is a need for the continent to come together and for the black voice to be heard booming once again across the world. And so we meet in order to unify, we meet in order to discuss the unification of the continent. And we've been meeting for years and years now. It started with our meeting in person in a town called Clapham South in London, where we met in person and commenced discussions around philosophy and ideology, rooted in the progressive kind, which you can find in Nkrumah's book, Conscientism. But as you know, Nkrumah wrote three main books in total. Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and Africa Must Unite. Africa Must Unite is a theme of our Saturdays, whereas philosophy is the theme of our Thursday meetings. And we are yet to find a day for economics, but we try and talk about economics and politics all on the same day, which is Saturday. So welcome. The topic for today is an interesting one. The title is so today is the 17th of May. So the title for today is Armed Liberation Struggles. Armed Liberation Struggles. Not just liberation struggles, but ones that have to be armed. And if you look at world history, haven't there been many armed struggles? Brother Pigeon, do we have a presenter, or are we just sharing our thoughts on the topic?
Brother Raspal had requested to do a brief presentation on this, maybe some few minutes, but
Okay.
we'll be opening up the conversation for members to share their thinking.
That's fine. So is Raspala? Raspala, are you ready?
Give thanks, wherever.
You ready? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you. So welcome, comrades, brothers and sisters. We gather today in the spirit of unity, resistance, and revolutionary purpose. As Kwame Nkrumah reminds us, only organized armed struggle under disciplined leadership can smash the chains of neocolonialism and unify Africa. So our meeting here, if you like, is not just a meeting. It is also a call to action. Let the struggle sharpen. Let the fire spread. Africa must be free. Brother Raspala, over to you, brother. So just a small, something small about Raspala. Raspala is a member of Constantism Study Group. He's been with us from the beginning. He's an expert on the original group of people called the Anunnaki. He has extensive knowledge of them. He has deep philosophical understanding of what is required in order for Africa to liberate itself. He has deep understanding of the Dogon people and their knowledge system, which we know in terms of their findings predate modern physics or modern astronomy in terms of their findings. That which they needed the telescope to find, the Dogon people already knew and talked about it. And for those of you also who are conversant with that history, the language of the Zulus of South Africa echo that as well, that they came from the stars. So Brother Anunnaki, Raspala is, for those of you who don't know, he's based in South Africa, Azania, as some prefer to call it. So he's going to be presenting for us from the basis of very deep knowledge of what Africa needs. Brother Ras, over to you. Thank you.
Give thanks, my elder. Pleasure for the words of righteousness. Yeah, give thanks, family, for this prestigious yet again event of the CSG Conscientism Study Group. I'll be brief. I did ask Brother Pigbin to be, actually, I'll be brief on this one. So for more engagements. Okay, so basically I'm gonna just talk about two topics, which is AFRICOM and AES. Those are the two topics I'm gonna talk. Okay, so the first topic is AFRICOM. So some of us might wonder what AFRICOM, how was it created? What is AFRICOM and why AFRICOM? So AFRICOM stands for United States Africa Command, which is a unified combatant command of the United States Department of Defense, responsible for United States military operations and relations in Africa, except for Egypt, which falls under CENTCOM. We'll explain that later. And then it goes on further to say that basically, okay, then before I explain that one, let me continue this explanation. So when was AFRICOM established? So AFRICOM was established basically in 2007, on the 1st of October. And its headquarters is believed to be in Germany. I don't know what's that city's name. Stuttgart or Stuttgart, I don't know. Pardon my pronunciation. So the commander obviously is a 4-star general. The one we just saw, General Langley, that black man. Yeah, he's the general in charge of AFRICOM. Then the area of responsibility is 53 African countries plus surrounding waters. And then basically the mission and objectives of AFRICOM are basically to promote regional security stability, to combat terrorism, violent extremist organizations, to strengthen the defense capabilities of partner nations, to support humanitarian and disaster relief missions, to secure United States strategic interests, i.e. resources, shipping lanes. So its key operations activities, AFRICOM is involved in both direct and support operations across the continent. I won't get into deep, I'll just end there. So if you can look at the map, the page I shared here, you can see that so USA, United States of America, through NATO, have established these commands all over the world, if you can see. So within these commands are basically where United States military bases are situated all over the world, except for Antarctica. But we heard now that they just built few bases there, but they're in Greenland, not at the actual North Pole. It's only Russia that has a military base in the actual North Pole. So I'm going to focus, obviously, our focus is on the Africa Command here on this page. We can all see here, I've shared. And as you can see in the Africa Command section, there are basically about 40, from what I've studied, I think there's about 48 military outposts in Africa that belong to USA. So, and about 48 military outposts and 4 military bases, if I can remember, yes. So they belong to the United States of America. They regulate these bases. So why am I giving this information of the AFRICOM? Basically is for us to have an understanding that the United States and via the UN cosmos, they are most there. You must remember, United States is one of the 5 Security Council members of the UN, which is a superpower and a nuclear capable nation. So basically, they've established a foothold in Africa. And from what we are getting is that these bases, if you read what I've just read, if you can remember what I just read about the key objectives of the AFRICOM, which is they claim to stabilize and to fight it, which is also counter-terrorism. But if you can look at what's happening in Sudan, Mozambique, AES, Congo, you can see atrocities, thousands of Black people dying every day, you see. Yet we have 48 United States military outposts, 4 military bases, the biggest in Djibouti, there next to Ethiopia on the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden. They have a very big military base there, USA. Next to it's not so far from the military base of China, because China has one overseas military base that they operate, which is the one in Djibouti, there in next to Ethiopia. So with so many bases where USA uses to conduct operations, one might wonder why or how can countries such as Sudan, Congo, Mozambique, AES end up falling into chaos and absolute non-governance when we have so many US bases. So it begs a question of, are these bases really counter-terrorism, or are these bases training the terrorists in order to maintain the resources or the national interests of USA? So that's the question I'll leave up to the panel. Then my second point is the point of AES. We're talking about armed struggle. Now it's particular, this one of AES, because the government of Burkina Faso was basically I can say a colonial government, because France was there. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, France was there as their colonial masters. That is prior to 2023, which is the time of the coup. They were there. And if you can study properly the reasons why Traore and the other black men in the military decided to take government by armed struggle, which is by the coup. When you analyze their story deeply, as we are starting to analyze that the French forces that were there in Burkina Faso, plus the UN peacekeeping forces, were supposed to fight off the terrorists that were there. And Captain Traore, I will talk about him specifically. I'm not omitting the other two generals, Assimi Goïta and Tiani. So now this man Traore, he was in the army, he was a captain, and he was part of the UN peacekeeping missions in Mali. I think it was also in Mali. So he was in this struggle, you see, basically as a soldier of the United Nations, trying to remove these terrorists who are raping our black women, killing children in West Africa. But now, and then up until he found out that actually these French forces and the UN are actually keeping these terrorists, terrorizing West Africa so that they can extract the resources at a much cheaper cost than they would have if they went to the conventional ways, which is by the table, negotiating. And also, they benefited because the weapons belonged to France, so their military industrial complex was getting a pay anyway. So then Traore, they decided to do as you know, the COP, military armed struggle, because it's been years ongoing, I think since 2012. I'm not sure, I'm just going to find out that UN peacekeeping mission that was there on that side of Mali and them, where they were trying to remove the terrorists, but the terrorists didn't stop, and actually they increased, you see. Then from those years, 2012 and going to 2023, that's when Traore and his cohort decided, no, let's put an end to this, because nothing is happening diplomatically, you see. So these are the 2 points I wanted to discuss on my presentation today on the basis of armed struggle. Because why? Because these 2 key points, which is the AFRICOM and the AES alliance, a military alliance, are key factors into what has actually taken place ever since the 1900s of the introduction of Pan-Africanism in its organized form, up until today, where we find out whereby now the armed struggle was the last resort. In fact, it was not even favorable. The forebearers, which is Kwame Nkrumah and them, they actually advocated for diplomatic means of achieving African independence. But now in our generation, we are coming to find out how our elders, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara and them, end up to be killed, even though they went through diplomatic means of independence of Africa. And it makes even more sense now that Traore is has a Guinness World Book of Records for being the highest man with the highest assassination attempts, which is plus 20. You see, and yeah, we can make sense how these assassination attempts came about because of that General Langley, who said Traore is taking gold and reaching himself. So now it makes sense how these terrorists are coming, you see, through these countries around AES. So the issue of armed struggle is still ongoing in Africa, and it needs a vigorous discussion and a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade. Brother Kwame? We can't hear you, Brother Kwame.
Can you hear
Brother
me?
Kwame? Yes, we can hear you now.
Right, sorry
Yes.
about that. Yeah, it's interference as usual. They don't like us talking amongst ourselves. So, Raspala, thank you very much. We have a very large attendance today. Probably it's the topic that has attracted a lot of people. Liberation, armed struggle. Perhaps people find that it echoes their thoughts, or maybe the General Langleys are wondering what civilians like ourselves are talking about, and they want reports on what some of us are discussing. Whatever it is, whatever the reason, we have 30 in attendance today, which is unusual for our Saturday sessions, when we have discussed more interesting topics like science and technology, mineral sovereignty, topics that are really at the heart of our development. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate your presence. Can I say that anyone who has prepared a presentation, please let us know in the chat so we can let you present. We are happy for you to present what you have prepared. We are always looking for speakers, by the way, and Brother Pigeon always sends out the call for speakers when he shares the topic. The challenge is that we don't always have a lot of speakers on topics, and yet there are Africans, experts on all the topics under this planet. There is no topic that you will not find an African who is an expert on. And yet when it comes to us looking for speakers, so anyway, please, if you can present, if you have prepared something to present, please let us know in the chat so that Brother Pigeon can line up the speakers. Otherwise, we will open up the. Yes, can you hear me? Okay. Otherwise, we'll open up the floor for general discussion. Yes, Brother Pigeon, go on.
Yeah, permit me to get into this topic a bit. More of a brief presentation in regards to the topic you're discussing.
Excellent. You have a presentation yourself, is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be speaking to this text I've highlighted here as part of my presentation to this conversation.
Excellent. Do you know of others who also want to present?
No, as you have requested, they should feel free to add that in the comment section in the chat so that we can go to them.
All right. Before you present, can I draw the attention of, let me make some few remarks. So armed liberation struggles is not new to Africa. For those of you who know the history. It goes way back even to women even forming liberation groups and fighting. So we have some of the armed liberation struggles in Africa recently, since after the Second World War, mainly, have been the Algerian FLN versus French colonial rule, and that was from 54 to 62. Then we had Angola, the MPLA, versus the Portuguese colonial rule. Portugal, for some reason, didn't want to leave Africa peacefully. They just wanted to continue stealing our resources. So that led to the Angolan MPLA struggle. That was a liberation struggle. Then there was the Mozambique Frelimo versus Portugal again. and that was in 64 to 1974 in Mozambique. Then there is Zimbabwe, the ZANU-ZAPU versus the Rhodesian regime. That was in 66 to 79. Now, interesting, 79 was the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council of Ghana, led by Wachijan and J.J. Rawlings, who later led a coup in 81. So that was in Zimbabwe, ZANLA and ZAPU. Then the fifth liberation struggle is the Guinea-Bissau one, the PAIGC versus Portugal again. This Portugal didn't want to leave us alone, but anyway. And it was armed struggle as well. And Portugal had to accept defeat. Then there is South Africa, the ANC, and then Umkhonto weSizwe versus apartheid. That went on from 61 to 94. The whites thought they could defeat Africans. They discovered they couldn't defeat Africans. So they had to find a way to continue stealing our resources without war. And from what you can see, they seem to have succeeded. So there is South Africa, ANC. Then there is Namibia. Our brother is here from Namibia, SWAPO versus the African occupation. That was in 66 to 1990. And so there have been armed struggles on the continent. And the common threats, Pan-African solidarity, external support, Cuba, the USSR, China, the non-Allied states offered us material and moral support. My friend in Angola tells me that Angolans have a right to live in Cuba if they want. So because Cuba and Angola are so close. Cubans were on the continent, as you know, as soldiers fighting alongside us. We seem to have forgotten these things, especially those young men and women in South Africa. They seem to have forgotten what we did for them, you know. Then there is women's participation as a common thread. Women, we don't seem to, you know, how women fought, you know, not only as supporters, but as fighters and leaders. Again, that's a common thread. And then revolutionary ideology, Marxism, Leninism, what some have called African socialism, anti-imperialism. So those have been common threads. So there have been armed struggle. And then the AU, the African Union today, does not appear to be in favor of armed struggle. The African Union is largely conservative and diplomatic. So that is their stance when it comes to liberation struggle, especially those involving armed resistance or radical regime change. We heard President Ruto, you know, condemn the coup in the Sahel. We know how ECOWAS wanted to go to war. I mean, imagine going to war for France. And other Africans said, not on our watch, and killed that idea. Africans sometimes just show that they don't like nonsense. They've had enough of neocolonial nonsense. And when Africans rise, people shut up, basically. They just shut up because Africans have spoken. What we need is for more Africa to begin to speak and assert itself. Anyway, so the African Union, conservative, diplomatic, and they respect the borders, non-interference, peaceful resolution, support for democratic principles. You know, those are the language of the African Union. And you can understand why. They want to just loot in peace. As for the looters, you know the looters, don't you? They have now replaced the previous thieves, you know. So they want to steal. Some of them want to steal in peace. So they don't want. So they don't want any struggle, any fight, because they just want to continue stealing in peace, sending their wives and their, you know, abroad for medical treatment, whilst ordinary hospitals on our continent can't look after our people. We can't even defeat mosquitoes. I mean, look at that small mosquito. You know, it's killing people, you know, left, right, and center on the continent, and our leaders can't kill mosquitoes. You know, think about it. So Africa needs a new liberation struggle, or doesn't it? Brother Raspala is suggesting in his presentation that we do, and that the current military officers in charge of the 3 Sahel states are, if you like, a kind of nucleus for a new type of struggle, where the African military should get involved in liberating the continent. That may be Nkrumah's idea of the high command, which is the African military, that should come into being. And when it does, it will shut up AFRICOM. AFRICOM is only loud. AFRICOM is loud and has a big mouth because the Africans have not got up and said enough is enough. The day the Africans military unite and say that AFRICOM, shut up and leave, and they will just leave. Look at how in Burkina Faso, Traore just ordered the French out, and then they left. There was no fight, it was there, and they left. So when Africans are ready, they will leave. So neocolonialism reigns supreme. So that's one reason why we need a new liberation struggle. And Nkrumah warned us that neocolonialism is the last stage of imperialism. Today, Africa appears free on paper, but we know that Western corporations control our mining, oil, and agriculture. International financial institutions like the thieves, the financial thieves called IMF and World Bank, all they do is steal our resources. And worse than that, they dictate policies through debt. Just imagine. Foreign military bases, as Brother Raspala has mentioned, AFRICOM, French bases, totally unnecessary. We don't need them. They are not doing anything for us. They occupy strategic zones to strangle us. Then we have media, education, political systems that replicate colonial logic. We have a situation where you have Africans, even those who claim they are Pan-Africanists, extolling neo-colonial mentality, by which I mean they accept neo-colonial citizenship. They're proud to be Ghanaians and Kenyans and Tanzanians and Malians, rather than being citizens of an African nation. Then the second reason why we need a new liberation struggle is these corrupt elites. They are all over, aren't they? Then they just replaced colonial governments. They sell our resources for peanuts. They enforce austerity on our people. And then occasionally the John Mahamas say, look, enough of this nonsense. We are not interested in this law that you've imposed on us. Can you imagine taxing people for using their mobile phones, taxing people for just sending money to other people? What kind of neo-colonial nonsense is that? So occasionally you have brave leaders like John Mahama of Ghana saying, look, enough of this nonsense. So that's the second reason why we need a new liberation struggle, because of some of these corrupt elites. And I hear that that man in Kenya is so corrupt. In fact, they even manufacture debt in order to steal our resources and claim that we owe debt, so they can siphon off money. That's how corrupt these people are. All they do is steal and steal and steal. The third reason why we need a new liberation struggle is the fragmentation that is all over the continent. There's too much fragmentation, and it's preventing true power. See, the dream of a united Africa remains unrealized. These colonial borders, they remain too sacred. And the African Union is toothless. Instead of it to get rid of these borders, it affirms it with all these principles of non-interference, and so on and so forth. So we need a new liberation struggle, a Pan-African revolutionary movement, rooted in ideology, first of all, which is why we focus on ideology, not just any ideology, not liberalism, not the ideology of liberalism, not the ideology of conservatism, not the ideology of Marxism per se. I mean, the Western kind, where workers are happy to be looted, where workers only fight for their rights in the West and don't care about workers in poorer parts of the world. That's not the kind of Marxism or or workers' rights that we are interested in. Then the armed struggle where necessary. Peaceful resistance is okay, but what if they are killing you? Do you sit down and let them kill you? So revolutionary defense is not terrorism, is it? It's survival. Some would argue. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, they say. Yeah. Some people have argued that Netanyahu of Israel is a terrorist. Others say, no, he's a freedom fighter. He's fighting for the defense of his nation. Yeah, but that nation occupies somebody else's land. Yeah, but hold on, that land was given to them by God. Well, did God give them that land? Well, if God gave them the land, where are the documents that the ownership documents that God signed to say this is your land? In any case, isn't Netanyahu a Eastern European? Didn't his father change his name from Eastern European so that they will look like they are Jews? I mean, how about that? So, but nobody's talking about that, are they? So, an armed struggle where necessary. So we need to struggle where it is necessary. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and they showed the early sparks. The Gen Zs didn't have the Gen Zs are not part of the Kenya Defense Force. So not much happened there. Imagine if the Gen Zs were the Kenyan and were part of the Kenya Defense Force. Can you imagine what would happen in Kenya? Anyway, then there's cultural and intellectual warfare. We must decolonize minds through revolutionary education. And then economic liberation. That's the key. We need to nationalize our resources, build regional trade systems. It's happening right now, but they must be outside IMF, World Bank control, and then create an African People's Bank. Brothers and sisters, I am talking about armed struggle. When we say armed struggle, we don't just mean guns and fighting and shooting people. That's not what we mean, because you can't fight people who have nuclear weapons, can you? I mean, the guy has a nuclear weapon. You say you want to fight him. Or her. How are you going to win someone who has superior weapons to you? So when we are talking about armed struggle, do not think of it only as guns and bullets and so on. Yeah. So it's more than that. And then we have military sovereignty, as Brother Raspala said. We need to dismantle AFRICOM and foreign bases on the continent. They need to be dismantled. And Traore and others have shown the way. The General Langley is afraid he will lose his job if AFRICOM is dismantled. So you can imagine he's defending AFRICOM's work so that he can keep his job. So anyway, so can I just say that the armed struggle will not be won with slogans alone. It will demand sacrifice, discipline, and a willingness to change everything we have been taught. We Africans have to be ready to fight for what we believe in. And we have shown that when we have clarity of vision, we are ready to fight for what we believe in. So yes, Africa needs a new liberation struggle, one that finishes what the first never completed, what Nkrumah called the African Revolution, is still unfinished. So it's not just independence that we want. We want true freedom. Not just flags. We need power. Not just borders. We need unity. As Nkrumah said, revolutions are brought about by men and women. By men and women who think as men and women of action and act as men and women of thought. So this generation and my children, because some of us are now advanced in age, we are going to leave the world very soon for the younger ones. So our children, this generation, those of us passing away soon, and the next generation, they must rise, not as citizens of new colonial states, you see, but as revolutionaries of a new Africa. So those are my small comments, Brother Pigeon, before we continue, and then you can now proceed and share your.
Yeah, thank you.
Has anyone, Brother Peter, has anyone said they want to present?
Now, there's only one hand up, and I'll be taking other hands up.
Okay, so you present, and then the other, whoever's hand is up will present, and then we'll share the national anthem, the African anthem, and then you can then share the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We hope to actually finish the first part in the first hour. The second hour will be opening up for general conversation and discussion from members who are present with us. Once again, permit me to appreciate members who have joined us. Brother Kwame, just for our notification, the member who has joined us with the name Samsung can actually change their name to who we know. I know I'm trying to forget the name, but I know the person of the name Samsung. So please, anybody still around, he can change to his actual name or her actual name.
All right, you continue. Let me deal with that. Thank you.
Okay, so comrades, we want to appreciate and thank you all for joining us today. Indeed, your attendance today is an example and a spirit that is spoken silently that the Africans are interested to this conversation of armed liberation struggle. I believe this is informed with some a resolution and consciousness of a failed struggle that we've had for a period of time. I'll say that then the question will always peg as I start my conversation is why armed struggle? But before I go to that level, permit me to look into what Nkrumah wrote. And people, of course, might say Nkrumah was only so peaceful when he wrote all his books. But in some of his messages, he was very clear that when it goes to violence or struggle, we have to be ready. He did not actually tell us to respond with the Bible when you're being shot. And one of his very revolutionary books when it comes to this conversation we're having today is this book called The Handbook for Revolutionary Warfare. I think at the stage where we are in regards to the liberation of the continent, the Pan-Africans and the global black community must be able to learn and read and understand this book. And it's because of this that I'll be able to share this book to members who are not present with us or who haven't got in touch with this book, to read Nkrumah's thought on how he actually put it clearly. If we are to go in a warfare, how should we organize ourselves? And that's why the quote that Brother Kwame has actually mentioned is very important to us. That Nkrumah said that the total liberation and the unification of Africa can only be achieved by armed struggle, organize and discipline. The element of organize and discipline under a revolutionary leadership. Therefore, Nkrumah says in this book that the basic nature of neocolonialism and the accumulated experience of liberation movements in Africa, Asia, Latin America indicates clearly that the only way for a broad masses to eradicate neocolonialism is through the revolutionary movement, springing from a direct confrontation with the imperialist and drawing its strength from the exploited and disinherited masses. The struggle against puppet governments, and this is where we'll be putting my conversation today, the struggle against the puppet governments and against all form of exploitation is the basic condition for the survival and development of a genuine liberation movement in Africa. We must accept the challenge and fight to destroy this threat to our future as a free and united continent. Some will say Nkrumah was a prophet. These are words that he put down so many years ago. And for so many years up to date, we are here. And then he reminds us that independence must never be considered as an end in itself, but a stage. Many of our countries just considered independence as an end. So when we attained our independence, what happened? We went to sleep. Yes, we have our black president. Now we are free. So what else? We went to sleep. Nkrumah says that is the very first stage of the people's revolutionary struggle, which means we had to take it beyond independence to the liberation, to the unification. And comrades, 60 years to 65 years experience of Africa has proven to us that indeed independence alone was not enough. in order to develop and to defeat neocolonialism. And therefore today we are in a peculiar situation where the white man is controlling, or the imperialist is with us through what they call their puppets governments. Now today, unlike the old time when our freedom fighters in Kenya went to the forest in armed struggle called the Mau Mau struggle, they were fighting a white man. But even in the midst of a white man, I'll give an example of the event that took place in 1953 at the eve of December in one place in Kenya called Lari. Even at the eve of the independence struggle in Kenya, a particular group of the same blacks were loyalists to the white man. They were called home guards. They were collaborating with the white man. And what happened? In one of the very event that is very historical, on the one night of 1953 around December, a group of Mau Mau freedom fighters left the forest and went into a concentrated camp, the reserves, where their fellow blacks who were believed to be loyalists, who were then appointed councillors, who were then appointed the chiefs, who were supporting the government, were residing. They decided to attack that village at 9 p.m. They attacked their fellow blacks who were collaborators with the white man. And in fact, that event happened, around 140 people were killed at night. And when the home guards and the collaborators came back and counted the village and realized that some people were not killed, there was specific selection. What they did, the fellow blacks who were collaborators decided to go ahead and kill other fellow blacks who were not then killed by the first armed struggle. They realized that these people were collaborating. In the morning, 420 people died in the same village. Same thing happens today, and Malcolm X reminds us the story of the house Negro and the field Negro, that some of us have become too comfortable to an extent that now we join the colonial masters and become their puppets. And that's why today we are fighting a white man through a black man. And what do we do now? Do we take the guns to shoot? Shoot at the state house, shoot at the president, shoot at everybody else? What do we do? In some situations it's been very hard. We've been having struggle going on all over. Look at Sudan, look at Congo, look at Haiti, look at very parts of the continent. But men and women, as Brother Kwame has said, whom Nkrumah reminds us, who must act as men and men of thought, have come out to do something. And therefore, what do we do? Democracy has failed us to some level. And I will say that, I'll admit. Because personally, I believe that democracy then can only survive in a society where people are equal, in an egalitarian society. But in a society where your vote don't count, and then voting becomes a ceremonial ritual that every day you just attend to go vote and come back home, while their puppets always maneuver to win and win forever. Look at Mugabe, look at, for example, Museveni of Uganda. He's been subjecting himself to election for the last 38 years and still win all of them. What is the essence of that election in Uganda if it cannot change anything at all? So these are the questions we are actually facing ourselves as the Pan-Africans today. And we ask ourselves which way forward. It's very clear that no democratically elected presidents in many parts of the continent have been brave and courageous enough to face the neocolonial mass and just tell them, pack and leave. None. Look, a country like Djibouti can host over 34 military bases. And that's where we get a chairperson of African Union Commission coming from a country that has over 30 or over 14 to almost 30 foreign military bases in the same country. That's the person who can be a chairperson of the African Union. Look at over part of, for example, President Ruto, who is opening up for French also to come and have their military bases here. Why do they need their military bases here when you don't have their military bases in their country? What is the essence of military bases here that have never stopped the war in Congo, that has never stopped the war in Sudan, that has never stopped the war in Somalia? Therefore, comrades, is a high call to us who are progressive enough to think about this way. Because as Malcolm X says, violence if assess defense. We never choose to be violent. But when they become violent to us, look for example what they did to the Gen Z, my fellow Gen Zs in Kenya. When we went peaceful with our flag demonstrating in the street, they shot us. They used the guns to continue shooting us, bringing us down. Who was shooting us? Not a white man. My fellow brother, my fellow cousin, my fellow relative, who is now a police officer, was using the arm to shoot me. While those should be using their arms to defend me from a puppet president and leaders, they were using their arm to shoot me and kill me. So, comrades, it's a high time that we must have conscious, and as we say, discipline, forces that must come up facing colonialism. And the only way I'm saying, comrades, is very clear. I think what Nkrumah thought in 60 years ago, we might reach at a stage of armed struggle. And I believe we are almost at that stage. And therefore, it's a matter of whether we are ready to go into it. And if we are ready, then we need to start organizing ourselves to do through what we call the Africa High Command Center, unify our military forces, bring our people together. Because then, if I have to go alone as Kenya, what will happen when Kenya just wake up and the US will be sending their missile and Kenya's done? The same way they could do in Gaza and they could do in Nagasaki. So we must be really prepared, and we must be really in process to be prepared for that. Not just saying we are going to armed struggle without a proper preparation for it. So that's what I'll commend, comrades, and thank you very much, Brother Kwame. And thank you very much to all who have joined us.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Pigeon, for your presentation. I am looking through the chat to see who wants to speak. I can't see. You did say there was somebody's hands was raised.
Yeah, there's
who is that? Sorry, let me just check. That is, let's see.
Nkrumah Kagugi from Tanzania.
Yeah, Brother Nkrumah has shared in the chat that we should mention other armed struggles. I think we have acknowledged that there are armed struggles on the continent. There have been armed struggles on the continent. We have already acknowledged that. For example, at 729, Brother Nkrumah said, but there has been armed struggle in the occupied Azania, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. Please expand this since seizure of the state through the AES. It's not necessarily the first in Africa. I don't think anybody has said that. I think everybody has said that the AES is the first of its kind on the continent. One could argue that the struggle for independence was the first stage of the capture of the state, where Africans captured the colonial state and tried to turn them into tools for their own liberation. Anyway, Brother Nkrumah, please feel free to come in. Yes, Brother Pigeon.
Yeah, members who want to speak and notify us, as I see also a comment with the name Legendary Legend can actually introduce himself. I've unmuted everybody so that I can have control, especially when the number is high. So I can only unmute you when I see your hand is up so that you can speak. For some safety measures and control in such meetings.
Okay. Brother Nkrumah, please continue. Yeah, please share your thoughts, after which we play the African anthem. Thank you.
Brother Nkrumah, you're now unmuted. Go ahead. Brother Nkrumah, you're now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, comrade Chair. Thanks, Maverick. I just wanted to highlight 2 or 3 points. But firstly, we need to give a clear distinction as Pan-Africanists that in the occupied Azania, before you can speak about MK and the ANC, which were not necessarily Pan-Africanist formation, purely because of when they adopted the 1959 Freedom Charter, they completely abandoned any aim and objective that relates to what Pan-Africanists seek to achieve. And therefore, in 1959, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, it was established in 1959. In 1960, around April, March, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, it was suspended after leading the 21st March anti-pass campaign. But when the PAC of Azania was suspended, when it was abolished or banned in 1960, the very same year, 1960, PAC already had an armed wing that was formed. The armed wing known as POCO, some of you may know it as Azanian People's Liberation Army. And it was formed long before the ANC had a thought of establishing a military army. And the PAC military army, it was the one which had a protracted and concerted effort for the overthrow of white supremacy and capitalism in the occupied Azania. I just wanted to add that particular point, such that as Pan-Africanists, we need to understand the peculiarities and the dynamics of settler colonialism in the occupied Azania. We argue, and this can be proven by various documents, that the ANC, MK, and Mandela did not fight for the overthrow of white supremacy and capitalism, for the return of the land to the rightful owners, that the wealth of Africa should be used equitably to advance and develop the African people, right? Hence, they were willing and keen to make a deal around 1992, 1993 to 1994 with the settlers that has ushered what became outrightly so as described by Nkrumah a neo-colonialism. So 1994 election in occupied Tanzania gave rise to an emergence of a neo-colonial state, and Nkrumah elaborates the nature and the character of a neo-colonial state. So in occupied Tanzania in 1993, 1994, the armed struggle was abandoned. Why? Because of people were sold a donkey, and they were made to believe that a donkey is a horse, right? They were made to believe that elections is democracy. And this is the second point that I want to come into, that the vast majority of us in Africa in diaspora were fallen victim of believing that the elections that are held each and every 5 years is a democracy. And when you look deeper and contextually, the nature of what democracy is, which has to do with the will and the wishes of the people to dictate upon everybody and for the people to govern. But the existing neo-colonial institutions are not there to serve the interest of the African people, but they are nothing else but an extension of imperialist countries. Life as continuous subjugation, exploitation, oppression of the African people, and our material conditions do not change. The third and the fourth key point that I want to raise, in particular in relation to the issue of the armed struggle. Yes, in principle, I agree that in natural fact, we need an armed struggle, and that armed struggle, it will be part of the second revolution in Africa. It will be a second revolution waged against neo-colonial states, right? And across Africa, what we have, these are neo-colonial states. And the man on the record of the earth pitfall of national consciousness elaborate the limitations and the weaknesses of the black middle class in relation to them taking to the logical conclusion, the African liberation struggle for national self-determination, self-reliance, that they cannot be trusted. In actual fact, because of they are an appendage, they are an extension of imperialism. Acting in the interest of imperialist countries, what they will then do, they make sure that they liquidate and extinguish each and every area where there are spots of revolutionary fires emerging. Kenya, Ruto launching the police and the army against the youth is one example. We can give a number of examples, right? Now, saying that and also learning for an example from Kenya as an example, where the young people rose against the state, right? But that campaign was not sustained. Why? Simply because for as long as there's an absence of a revolutionary vanguard party to agitate, to organize the masses in a most focused, disciplined manner, so that whenever there's a program, whenever there's a revolt, there's a picket and so forth, all are coordinated and organized to heighten the political and ideological consciousness of the masses. The absence of a revolutionary vanguard party will lead to the masses engaged in erratic protest, which will be squashed by the system, and that type of programs are not sustained. I mean, when you come to occupied Tanzania, we can give you an example of Peace Must Fall, which was squashed by the state. We can give you an example of Marikana mine workers, African mine workers, who demanded salaries, but the state wanted the increase of salaries. But what the state has done is to launch an army and now the police force. And more than 30 African workers were killed. And all those who claim to be socialist, Pan-Africanist, revolutionaries were nowhere to be found to rise in defense of the African workers. Why? Because there's an absence of a revolutionary vanguard party. The vanguard party is central to raise the consciousness of the people, because of most of our people suffer from false consciousness. They've normalized unacceptable living conditions, and they take them as a normal, or others take them as God-created conditions. So I learned the significance of the Revolutionary Vanguard Party, and it playing a critical role to raise the consciousness of the people. And what makes that important is that it is also important to create a revolutionary environment. The revolutionary environment which will become proven and necessary, so that when you move to the stage of the armed revolution, you don't then become like Che Guevara in Bolivia, where the people you want to fight on behalf of, because of they're not conscientized, they're not organized, they are the first to go and report you to the system, and the system arrests you. Why? Because of the masses are not organized. I just wanted to reflect and share the interrelationship of this particular critical point. But at the core of everything, the Vanguard Revolutionary Party, it's central. But also, we need to be ideological clear that when we wage this particular revolution, whose interest are we waging this particular revolution? In whose interest we are going to work for the seizure of state political power? Because of we have an experience how the black middle class have abandoned, for example, Kwame Nkrumah was a Congress stage, right? They abandoned them, Nkrumah, they rushed for the any flight available so that they can come back to Ghana and for them to be accommodated by the new system. Why? Because of when there's an absence of a revolutionary party. And this argument also applies to Captain Ibrahim Traore, that the moment there's an absence of a revolutionary Vanguard party, reactionaries, opportunists will rise. They'll rise in a brutal way. And the lesson that we draw from Thomas Sankara being betrayed by a very close friend of his, Amageti was once a comrade, it's only because of being dependent on individuals. It's a greater mistake. But being dependent on revolutionary organization is very critical. Hans Nkrumah speaks about the revolutionary organization and discipline, so that all our acts and methods of struggle are subjected to scientific approach for initiating, for execution, for sustainability of the program. Thank you, Chair. Isolate.
Thank you, brother. I think you've started the fire already. Thank you. So I think, Brother Nkrumah, I accept everything you've said. And I think that the PAC, Sam is here as well. The PAC must continue to share its revolutionary message, so that perhaps after 1994, after the reconciliation, the PAC thought that its motto of one settler, one bullet was not appropriate, and changed it to is it serve the people, or one child, one education, whatever it was. So we can see that the West African events have come to, if you like, affirm the fact that the PAC maybe should not have changed its motto, because the settler, as you said, the occupation of South Africa, which is continuing, which by extension, the continuation of the African continent by neo-colonial forces, which is still continuing, requires the PAC to probably look at itself, decide it has no business being in a government of national unity with the ANC, and lead. And the PAC, as you know, is a civil organization. The AES are military, so you can see how the PAC now has a role as a civilian institution to lead all of us, and we are happy to follow you. All we do, CSG, we just provide the philosophical and ideological grounding, but we are happy. The ACUP have also come out, the African Continental Unity Party. So the civilian organizations, it's up to us. So the time now is 11 past 8. So let's hear the African anthem, and then I think we'll move to, oh, Peter's hand is up. So maybe Peter will speak, and then we shall, Brother Pigeon will chair the discussion. And so here is the anthem, brothers and sisters.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Thank you. We need a revolutionary leadership, a vanguard, a continental vanguard. And maybe the PAC can help us with this one. The PAC and the ACUP. Over to you, Brother Peter. Share your thoughts, and then Brother Pigeon, please stand by to chair.
Yes, thank you, Brother Kwame, and yes, I'm here. Brother Peter, please go ahead. And for all comrades who will be interested to chip in, we are having now our next 45 minutes probably to end our conversation now, and we would like at least to give members an opportunity to say something even in a minute or even 2 minutes if that allows. So please go ahead, raise up your hand. I'll always unmute you. So if you want to share something, be in that order, let your hand be up and I'll unmute you to allow you to speak. Go ahead, Brother Peter.
Thank you very much, brother, for allowing me to speak, and also just to make a note that this is my first participation in this meeting, and the reason why is because my attention was piqued by the topic, armed struggle, because in all my time as a Pan-Africanist, this is the first time I've heard a call for an armed struggle for the liberation of our continent. By the way, my full name is Peter Che Enim Sampong. That's just for the record. Brother Kwame made a very good and compelling case for armed struggle. However, at the very tail end of it, he got me slightly confused when he said that armed struggle need not necessarily be arms, guns, shooting people or people being shot at. And that I thought was a bit contradictory, because arms is arms. So if you say that it is not necessarily carrying arms, then what exactly is armed struggle? That's one thing I like clarity from Brother Kwame. Then
so Brother Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to clarify that. You are right. If I came across as saying that carrying of arms was it necessary or not part of the armed struggle, then I withdraw that. What I sought to say was that the armed struggle includes all the other forms of struggle. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine then, because as I said, that was a bit confusing for me, because I'm thinking, why would you say that? If you say we should prepare for armed struggle, then you're saying it's not carrying arms. Then why the word arms? Because arms is arms. Anyway, so thanks for the clarity, Brother Kwame. Then to the broader topic, I want to look at the historical perspective of the whole thing, where we have had armed struggles, and that in itself has had the outcome of defeating the colonialists and the settlers and anybody who is against Africa. And when we look on the African continent, correct me if I'm wrong, brothers, I don't think there's been an instance where armed struggle led completely to the destruction of the oppressor. In all the cases that we have seen armed struggle, what happened, and again, I stand to be corrected, what happened was that our comrades who embarked on armed struggle fought so well that the oppressor didn't have a choice but to agree to some form of resolution, which in most cases was election, in which the armed comrades took power. In the case of Zimbabwe, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, and where else? I think that's the case in all these cases where they took up arms. They didn't actually drive away the settler or the imperialist, but the armed struggle forced them to come to terms that, listen, these guys mean business, so you either have to have elections. And in all the cases, when they had elections, our comrades in arms won the election. So based on that historical antecedent, I'm wondering why we think that we can use armed struggle in this day and age and win outright power. I hope people see the trajectory of my argument, because we haven't had any history of that. In fact, in the whole world, I think the only instance where armed struggle has led to complete and outright victory for the armed people is in the case of Cuba, and I think Nicaragua and China, if I'm correct. In all other cases, they either had to compromise, especially in Latin and South America. Some of them put down their arms and then became political parties and subsequently won power. But let's confine ourselves to the case of Africa. As I've mentioned already, in all the cases, Zimbabwe, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, and as a comrade from PAC said, they would have done it, but Mandela and his people with ANC, they diluted it, and then that compromise came about and ANC won power. But PAC wanted the armed struggle. It didn't bring about that. So anybody can clarify that for me, why we think it will work this time as compared to 50, 60 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, anyway.
Thank you, Comrade Peter. Anybody who still want to speak, please let your hand be up on the so that I can allow you to unmute yourself. Brother, I've seen Brother Nkrumah has spoken, Brother Peter has spoken. Anybody else who haven't spoken, feel free to go ahead. But before that, of course, I'll also point at this quote, Brother Peter. Nkrumah says that our armed struggle for freedom is neither moral nor immoral. It is a scientific, historically determined necessity. So just to quote that, but yes, anybody would like to come to that, feel free to come to that. Let me go to.
Can I, Brother Pigeon? Can I?
Yes,
ask,
Brother Kwame.
Brother Peter. He doesn't have to respond immediately, but think about it and come back later. Does he think or not think that the action by the military, how does he consider the action of the military like Traore in Burkina Faso? Does he see that as armed struggle or not? And if not, why not? And then secondly, does he think that they have been able to throw out France, which was the enemy? They've thrown out French companies, the French military, doesn't he consider that as a victory in the sense in which he's asking us? So it's just a thought. You can come back later.
Would you want me to respond to that, Brother Kwame?
Brother Peter,
Yeah, do you want me to respond to that?
if you can take a minute for that's okay, so that I can allow other members to go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, let me that's more fresh in my mind. Brother Kwame's question. I wouldn't call the military interventions in Burkina Faso and the Sahel countries as armed struggle. The reason is that all of us have quoted extensively from Kwame Nkrumah's book, Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, and that is different from what we have seen in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and I think, is it Guinea? Yeah, the Sahel countries anyway. That is military intervention. The population is not involved. What Kwame Nkrumah wrote about is about the people themselves being actively involved in the armed struggle. It's the people themselves who are fighting for their own liberation. In the case of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, it's our comrades who have been liberated mentally, who have taken the vanguard. So, and I applaud that. I'm 100% behind it. But there's a difference. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's a difference between what is happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and the other, and what Kwame Nkrumah wrote about. There's a big difference there. It's the military who are doing it, and God help them. They should succeed. I don't mind. But it is different from what Kwame Nkrumah wrote about, which is what we're exposing here. So let's not conflate the two.
Okay, thank you.
You asked a question yourself. You asked me a question. I forgot the question you asked me. You quoted something by Nkrumah Conway.
No, I've just quoted. The quote is clear here, but I'll go to Sister Tapua. You'll maybe come back to it. The quote is here that our armed struggle for freedom is neither moral nor immoral.
Okay, all right.
It's a scientific, historically determined necessity.
Okay, but in saying that, I wasn't looking to make a distinction between moral or immoral. I was just saying, I was just making historical, putting it in historical perspective as regard to what has happened before. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sister Tapua, you were unmuted before, and then you again went back silent. Did you want to speak, Sister Tapua? Sister Tapua, if you're not ready, then I'll go to other communists. Uzanda up, that is Bernard Owusu, and then Samuto. Bernard, please have your 2 minutes. Anybody want to speak, please raise up your hand so that I can allow you. Bernard, Brother Nkrumah, I'll come back to you. Bernard Owusu, kindly unmute yourself so that you can speak. Bernard? Okay. Bernard, you cannot unmute yourself. Brother Sam, I'm sending you a request to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
Oh.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, so Brother Bernard, in maybe 2 minutes, then Elder Sam. Brother Bernard?
Okay. Brother Kwame, my question is, would Europe actually have become free without the revolutions that took place there? And now they deny revolutions as a genuine way for people to assert their freedom. Yeah, that's the question.
Brother Kwame, you got the question. Maybe you can come to it later now.
Let me answer it later. Let others. Let's hear from others.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elder Sam.
Thank you, Brother Pigeon, and everybody on the platform, especially most of my comrades who are also on the platform, Comrade Nkrumah, Comrade Prince Sankara, and others. Members, I just want to make an input. I think all the inputs that were made are excellent. A revolutionary party, totally revolutionary party, which has a revolutionary ideology, which has a program of action that is not only progressive but revolutionary. But the issue here, comrades, is the fact that Most of us, we never defined our end state when we got into the revolution. We never described what do we want to see at the end of what we are doing. And that is why we were forced and boxed into this. But I think the biggest challenge for us was understanding what did we mean by the People's War? What did we mean by being one with the people? We missed that boat in most of our cases. Cuba, and I heard Brother Kwame say you cannot fight countries with nuclear war alone. Cuba did that. Cuba started with 15 men, and they went into Cuba and dislodged the Batista regime, and they completely dismantled the USA and its powers that wanted to disrupt the Cuban Revolution. And they did that up till today. So, brothers, it is a myth, and it is because we don't greatly spell what is our end state and understand what we say to be one with the people. If we talk about Azania, it was a myth that we in the PAC said we are doing away with armed struggle because Zimbabwe say they will not support us. Azania by itself, it's a vast land where armed struggle and liberated zones could have been done if the Revolutionary Party had a clear revolutionary path, a clear revolutionary program, and understood what this thing of saying being one with the people is. But the last issue, we should also understand that the revolution will always suffer setbacks, especially when we think it is just defeating the armed soldiers of the enemy. Remember now, the oppression was in all dimensions, socially, economically. It was also cultural, which is a big weapon that we don't see. You know, here in South Africa, if I can speak why the revolution is unable to be brought to its logical end, it is the cultural effects of imperialism and colonialism. Our people are westernized. We are a small America. And because of that, even now when we talk of a vanguard party, as long as our people's mentality is being captured, they still believe in the Western world, they still believe in all sorts of things that comes from the USA and Britain, we will still have a challenge of prosecuting the armed struggle to its logical conclusion. So, in conclusion, a revolutionary vanguard party must define its end state. What was the end state of the PAC when they went into saying we are suspending armed struggle? Didn't the PAC know that the people of Azania are in Azania? They've been fighting and defeating apartheid, even with us, the guerrilla fighters outside the country. Why did we compromise on that? So the Revolutionary Vanguard Party must have a revolutionary path with a total, clearly defined end state. And that's when you can totally achieve that liberation, just as the Cubans did, just as the Vietnamese did, just as the North Koreans did. And what is wrong with us in Africa that we are failing to defeat imperialism and colonialism? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elder Sam. Sister Tapua was unmuted. Sister Tapua, did you have to say something, or Sister Mera? I want to get the voices of the sisters as well. And anybody want to speak, please let your hand be up so that I can call and allow you to unmute yourself. Sister Tapua?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm not able to make any comments right now. Thank you. I'm enjoying the discussion.
Don't enjoy the discussion. Just be fully into the discussion and share something. When you feel you can. No problem, sister. Sister Myra? Sister Myra, do you... Yes?
No comment, thank you.
Oh, sisters. Today the armed struggle is for men. Okay. Anybody want to come in? If not...
There are other sisters in the house.
Yeah, I'm still going through my sisters, actually.
Sister is there.
Yeah. Sister Amma? Sister Amma?
Sister Amma is there. So
Yeah.
there are others. It's just, thank you.
Let me go to Sister Amma. Sister Amma, I'm requesting you to unmute yourself. Sister Amma? Okay. If Sister Amma is not able to say something, any sister want to say something, please let your hand be up so that I can unmute you. Sister Chisomo, you want to say something in regards to this topic of armed struggle? Okay. The sisters, Sister Shaza, another sister here. Sister Shaza, do you want to say something in regards to this? Please share with us your thinking. Let me know by raising your hand, or I'm requesting you to unmute yourself and share something. Sister Shaza? Okay. I've tried my best. Any sister who will feel like they want to say something, please just raise up your hand so that I can call you to come in and share your thinking with us. But I can kindly respond to one of the few issues that were raised as I take the second round of those who want to speak. So please, if you want to speak, let your hand be up.
Brother Bernard, can I say that I am not an expert on armed struggle, the military, all that. I am a professor of conscientism. That is my specialty. We have who are better qualified to speak on the question of armed struggle, the history of war, and so on. Brother Sam here has more experience than myself, having lived in South Africa and still lives in South Africa. I was only in South Africa briefly for 6 months after the end of apartheid, but they still live there. Brother Nkrumah here, from what I can see, is also South African. However, Brother Bernard asked me a question about European armed struggle, and Brother Bernard, my brother, yes, Europe's liberation, independence, and nation building were overwhelmingly achieved through armed struggle. That is correct. And despite how modern narratives emphasize diplomacy, democracy, or gradual reform, in England, they even chopped off the head of the king. That is how violent their armed struggle was. Beneath the surface, in fact, not just in England, in France, they also chopped off the head of their king, Louis, and his wife, Marie Antoinette. So we need no lectures from Europeans on armed struggle. But anyway, so beneath the surface of civilized European development, of course, lies a long and bloody history of wars, revolutions, and violent resistance that shaped the European continent. By the way, there are mathematicians who reject this idea. It may come as a surprise to some of us that mathematicians also have philosophical positions who reject this idea that there's such a thing as Europe. There is no such thing as Europe. Europe is just part of Asia. Europe is a framing. It's an idea. It's a conceptual framework, if you like. It's a geographical concept which has been created to fool us. There's no such thing as Europe. And having said that, key examples of armed liberation in Europe include one, the French Revolution, as you all know, 1789 to 1799. Brutal. It was brutal. It was against the monarchy, feudalism, and economic oppression. There were executions, civil war, foreign invasions followed, and it gave birth to modern republicanism and anti-colonial ideas, as we now all know. Then there's two, the Russian Revolution of 1917. That was an armed overthrow of the Tsar. Yeah, it led to civil war between the Red Army and counter-revolutionary forces. So let's be clear. If we go to the armed struggle route, I hear Brother Peter say, I'm surprised to hear there is such a call. If Africans heed the call for armed struggle, let's be clear, there will be two two camps, because there are those who love neocolonialism so much. They are conservatives, and some of them are liberals, and they love the enemy so much. It's like what was it, brother, and the brother that talked about the house, is it Brother Pigeon? The house, the black person that lived in the house of the master, and the black person that was in the fields. And you remember the saying that by Malcolm X, that when the master was sick, the African or the black person that was in the field was praying that the master should die. But the African that was living in the house wished that he had died and the master had lived. So you have two types of Africans on the African continent. Those who love Macron so much. Oh, they will die for Macron. Oh, yes, they are prepared to lay down their lives for Macron and for others, yeah? And then there are the Africans who would not like to die for Macron, yeah? Who would not like to die for imperialists. So let's be clear. Any war, any armed liberation in Africa is going to come in. It's going to split into two warring factions. And if my guess is right, looking to the future, it will be those Africans who want progressive Africa, backed by China and Russia, on one hand, against those Africans who would like the exploitation and the stealing to continue because they benefit from it, backed by Europe and by America. So this is what I see as the coming ultimate war on the African continent. And it's going to be the fight for the survival of Africans, because at some point, Africans want to live on a continent that they control and not to be controlled by others. So, but Bernard, the third armed struggle is the Greek War of Independence, 1821 to 1829. And that was an armed struggle against the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. And then there is the Second World War, as you know, and these resistance movements. And you saw France, Italy, Yugoslavia, Poland, and others saw violent partisan movements.
Okay.
And then there is the Irish War of Independence, 1990 to 1921. So yes, brother Bernard, there have been armed struggles on the European continent, and so the myth is a myth that Europe civilized itself through dialogue and diplomacy. The reality is that European freedom was won with bullets, barricades, and blood, and so it is hypocrisy to say that Africans who rise with arms against oppression should be called terrorists, when Europeans do the same. And those Europeans are celebrated as freedom fighters, revolutionaries, and patriots, and so on. So why is armed struggle noble in Paris, but criminal in Kinshasa? So yes, Brother Bernard, Europe got its liberation through armed struggle. It was messy, bloody, and often glorified. And Africa is not doing anything new by fighting for freedom. We are simply walking the same path as Europe walked, but with less hypocrisy and more honesty. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. I just also mentioned the Mau Mau was two functions. There were those who are home guards, there were those who are loyalists, and there were those who are sacrificing in the streets and in the forest. I'll come back to Brother Nkrumah, and I've requested anybody who want to speak. We are still having around 18 to 20 minutes to end our session. Our sessions are strictly 2 hours, and we are always here every Saturday. I'm quoting this book again from Brother Kwame Nkrumah from the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And because people have talked about the need for organization and the revolutionary Nkrumah says that in comparison, the independent states of Africa are at present militarily weak. Unlike the imperialist and neo-colonialist, they have no mutual defense system, no unified command to plan and direct joint action, but this will be remedied with the formation of All African People's Revolutionary Army and the setting up of organizations to extend and plan effective revolutionary warfare on a continental scale. We possess the vital ingredients necessary to win. the full and enthusiastic support of the broad masses of African people who are determined once and for all to end all forms of foreign exploitation, to manage their affairs, and to determine their own future. Against such overwhelming strength organized on a Pan-African basis, no amount of enemy forces can hope to succeed. So let me get to Brother Nkrumah.
Yeah, but brother Pigeon, just a quick comment there. So Brother Peter is right to point out that, for example, what you are reading is not the same thing as what Nkrumah, you know, what as Nkrumah wrote is not the same thing as what is happening in Burkina Faso and so on. And so, in a sense, what Brother Peter is saying, if I understand him correctly, is that Brother Sam, your PAC, and then the ACUP members who are here, please, you guys need to get together and form a vanguard revolutionary party so that we can follow you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. In fact, even Sankara, if I recall someone in his book, Thomas Sankara Speaks, at the end, before he was actually murdered, he said it, that even after taking power through the military system, he realized that there was a need to form a vanguard party. He said the revolution must have a vanguard. And before he did that, actually, he was assassinated. And that's what also Brother Peter was pointing. If the military leaders do not move to a vanguard party that then carries the civilian and the masses to own the revolution, because Nkrumah says the revolution belongs to the masses, not only to the military forces, but to the masses. So I think that's also a very important pointer. So Brother Nkrumah, and any member who would like to speak, please, your hand should be up because we are having few minutes to go. So Nkrumah?
Brother Pigeon.
Oh, who is this? Sawindok, sorry. Sawindok, you didn't raise your hand, but I know you had right to speak. Go ahead first.
I didn't raise my hand. I don't know why. Technology.
Okay, go ahead.
Greetings.
Greetings, brother.
Yeah, maybe a comment or two. We should never be apologetic when we talk about armed struggle. Armed struggle is armed struggle. It's taking up guns and fight. Because when the Europeans have taken Africa, colonized Africa, they came with guns. The most likely way that will drive them away easily and quicker is through us taking up arms. And I understand what you're saying. There's a difference between a house nigger and a field nigger, meaning we first have to deal with a house nigger, the likes of the puppet regimes, transform them in the regimes that we want, that we know would bring changes. So that when we take up arms against the colonizers in the West, we know everybody, every African state, if you like, in their current states, will toe the line. So once we have done that, we will start pointing our guns at the West. I rest.
That means we must start doing that because the time is not on our side. Brother Nkrumah?
Now,
guys, you need to train some of us. Some of us only know how to read books. So you need to take us to the bush and train us how to fire guns.
Yes, thank you. Brother Nkrumah, I think you are muted. Go ahead. Then any member, I'm not seeing any hand up. If there's no hand up, we'll assume no one wants to speak. You're enjoying the discussion.
I wanted to reflect quickly on the statement made by Brother Comrade from Africa, Peter, that about the Burkina Faso and other countries. That firstly, let us appreciate, in the science of revolution, we learn that nothing is constant but change. And change itself inherently is an outcome in a process of contradictions that are prevalent to bring about change. Therefore, there are times when men or people will have to wage a revolution, not because of they like the circumstance, but because of the circumstance and the conditions imposed upon them. It is against their wishes and interests. Then therefore they must rise. And at that point in time, those and that which is able to respond and to react to imperialism or to counter-revolution, let it be. It is in the nature of the revolution, right? So for me, I think all of us, we must see the Burkina Faso or the AES development as positive development. However, what we need to take it further by engaging our own comrades in those particular countries that the coup d'etat on itself is not enough, running from Thomas Sankara. What is then required is for these forces to move into deliberately and consciously so, forming a vanguard revolutionary party which is mass-based. Right? And when it is mass-based, it lies without giving that it will act in the best interest of the African people in particular. It might be a mass-based movement of African workers and the peasants against imperialism. Why? Because of the African workers and the peasants are the key, they are the core and the cornerstone of the African revolution, as we say, that they are the only reliable active force for the revolution. Last key point that I want to raise about some of the struggles and armed struggles in Africa. What must also be understood is that in countries like Zimbabwe, Mozambique, that it was the armed struggle that compelled and forced colonialists to hand over political power. Why? Because we learn from history and experience that there is no master, there is no colonial country that was willing to hand over political power voluntarily or over a silver plate. It has never happened. If such has happened, give us an evidence, right? So armed revolution became very critical as a method for seizure of state political power. Yes, certain things may not have unfolded as desired, purely because of, as we plan as revolutionaries, surely imperialists, they also launched their own counter-revolutionary forces, as Comrade Kwame has highlighted, that we have a house leader and a field leader. House leaders will always be used against revolutionary forces. And this is what we have to do with the neo-colonial states that we have in Africa. These are house leaders who are acting in the best interest of imperial forces, right? Now, we must also appreciate the fact that the second revolution in Africa will be what was the revolution in Cuba. Because of sometimes we look at Cuba's revolution, we are impressed and excited by Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and many others. But little do we realize that, by the way, this revolution was launched against neo-colonial forces because of Batista was an agent of imperialism. So Fidel Castro waged a revolution against a house leader, which was Batista. Now that is a state that we must enter, going from the Cuban Revolution. That, by the way, Cuba waged a revolution against their own people who were agents of imperialism. We are also going to embark in a similar second revolution to overthrow neo-colonial states, right, against forces of imperialism. So the essence is that if there was no armed struggle in Zimbabwe, settlers were not going to hand over power voluntarily or over a silver plate. The same thing applied to Angola. But they had to make sure that they subject and try to find a way of maneuvering and manipulating the process so that liberation movement come to the table and they then discuss the terms of transfer of power. And that's where most of the liberation movement made a strategic blunder. And this is the point that Africa, as Sam has highlighted, in terms of the strategic blunders that were committed in occupied Tanzania in the period of 1990 and 1993-94. And people across Africa and the globe were shown a false consciousness, a false story that a donkey is a horse.
Okay.
That is South African democracy. So those are the critical points that I wanted to share for us to contextualize and for us to be very dialectical in engaging this particular issue. And lastly, just in passing that we read, and I think also Kwame Nkrumah highlights this point, that the greatest knowledge we can generate to advance the revolution, it is through practice. It is through practical work. Why? Because for us to remain in using books that are written based on the past experiences, may not necessarily help us to deal with today's contextual issues. And that becomes important for us to be organized based on scientific revolutionary theory, revolutionary organization, revolutionary party, revolutionary leadership, and revolutionary program for the figure of the political power, moderation, and unity of Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We are a study group, and therefore our reference to books and writings sometimes might appear more frequent, because basically we are not only a study group, we are a philosophical study group. So everything we try to put in a philosophical angle. But before I go to General Nunaki, I just want to put another reminder here. Nkrumah says that we concentrate our forces for a decisive armed struggle to achieve our objective, or we will each fall one by one to the blows of imperialism in its present stage of a desperate offensive. I think at this particular moment they're so desperate than ever before. So let's get to General Nunaki. We are only having around 9 minutes to go, or 8. So General Nunaki, please have your maybe 2 minutes if that's okay. If there will be no any hand, I will take it back to Brother Kwame as we come close towards the end of this session today. General Nunaki.
Yes, some of the league. Yeah, I just wanted to quote also from the great Nkrumah himself, when he said that we need an African Joint Military Command. So that speech already of the great Kwame Nkrumah already tells a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Amma? At least we are having a sister sharing now their thoughts. Please, sister, go ahead. Sister Amma, I've asked you to unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I'm glad to see what's being proposed by the Discussion Network with coordinating defence strategies. I'm going to try and just talk in everyday terms.
Sister, you are not that audible. You are not that audible. Please try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're better.
At this point in time in Africa, there are a lot of primarily men, African men with arms terrorizing ordinary Africans in the Sahel region, in the Congo. We mentioned some of the other places. But when we're talking about armed struggle, let us think about what the current reality is. The purpose of any of our struggles should be for the benefit of the masses of the people. And I think that we need to think about that, and we need to think, because when all the examples were being given, there have been so many instances of Africans taking up arms, sometimes with revolutionary spill. I'll quote Sierra Leone, Revolutionary United Front. If you read the document which they produced, you would think they were progressive. If you look at what they did in that country, it was absolutely terror. They were being armed and supplied by Libya, same as in Liberia. So actually, let's look at some of the complexities of what's happened and is happening in Africa. And then when we're looking at a defense, let's not just talk about it in this, how can I say, highfalutin theoretical way, but let's talk about the reality. How do we, as Africans, men and women, stop some of the terror that is happening in Africa at this point in time? So some of it is being, instigated from outside forces, but there are internal forces, and by that I mean fellow Africans who are terrorizing our people. Nigeria, Togo, Niger, Burkina Faso. I just want to say, kind of do the discussion next week. Let's really think about some of the things we need to do. And I think one of the other people we should look at is Amilcar Cabral. Because Amilcar Cabral wrote a lot based on waging very, very good before he was spoken, then it was translated and put into book form. So let's also try and look at some of the things and some of the strategies and tactics that he said. And one of the important things is organization and education, and the two go hand in hand. Organized activity and education. So everybody, the majority of people have to have a commitment, and we've seen it before in other places. So it's achievable now. But the current state, if we really as Africans do not think about this, and particularly what's happening in the Congo and in that Western Africa region, because it's penetrating from, say, like the Sahel countries down into Ghana, for instance, needs to look out. Côte d'Ivoire needs to, it's beginning to penetrate down. So please let us talk about it, not just in this highfalutin way, but really think about what we together can do. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. May we come in, please?
So we have only 3 minutes left. So yeah, that's why we need more speakers on the topic. So Sisama, thank you for your view. Some would argue that what is happening in the Congo is not an armed liberation struggle. It's basically foreign-backed militias fighting amongst themselves. Some will say that what's going on in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon is an armed struggle. And then there's the Sudan. Let's not forget the Sudan. A lot of fighting is going on in the Sudan. And then we have what is happening in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, led by the military and the Alliance Sahel states. So yes, a lot has been happening. I think we need to look at all of this. But I think that the ACUP, and because we are not a political party, we are, as Brother Pigeon reminded, we are a study group. We are a philosophical and ideological study group. And we provide ideological and philosophical guidance based on Nkrumah's consensusism. So it is the political parties, ACUP, PAC, the registered political party, and the unregistered, you have to lead in terms of the African Revolutionary Vanguard Party. We are looking up to you guys to show leadership. So yes. So we thank everyone who has joined us today. I would like us to remind ourselves about our women who were involved in armed struggle: Queen Ndongo, Nzinga Mbandi of Angola, Ya Asantewa of Ghana, Mita T. Lili wa Menza of Kenya, Funmilayo Ransom Kuti of Nigeria, then Djamila Bohairit of Algeria, and then Ruth First and Winnie Mandela of South Africa of Azania. So let's not forget them. Brother Pigeon will make the announcements. We are hoping that we'll have women speakers for this ALD. So Sam, I'm hoping you can be one of the speakers. Yeah, Brother Pigeon, it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, comrades, and thank you, Brother Kwame, and thank you for.
Brother Pigeon, I've put the topic for next week in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, comrades, and thank you, Brother Kwame, and those who have joined us. We always have this conversation every Saturday. We've had this for the last almost 2 years. We have a conversation because we are a philosophical study group. So we studied the philosophy and the book called Consciousness, written by Kwame Nkrumah, the philosophy and ideology for decolonizing Africa. We've been doing that for the last 3 years. So this is just part of what we do regularly or what we do frequently.
Pigeon,
and
we've been
yes,
for 20 years, not 3 years.
No, you have been
came online about 3 years ago during COVID.
Yes, I know you've been physically meeting to discuss this for the last not even 20 years. You've done it from 1990s.
So even for the online, it was during COVID. So it's more than 3 years because COVID
Yeah.
was around 2020. Anyway, please carry
Yeah,
on.
so comrades, this is what we do. We run a Thursday class, we run a Saturday unification. We are having a Pan-African library. All books written by Africans or about Africa or by black authors are available into 6,000 of them. So anytime you need any book for revolutionary discussions, they're available. We run a unification class as well on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we do a lot in regards to contribute to the educational, the mental liberation as a contribution to the struggle. As Brother Kwame said, ours is to help contribute ideological and philosophical support to the revolutions. And as I end this, of course, I'll remind this quote by Amilcar Cabral. He says that always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win the material benefit. We are materialists, not idealists, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children. Therefore, any struggle that is not to these principles are not the struggle for the interests of Pan-Africanism. Therefore, we must remember, and the caution Sister Amma is telling us, that let's remember those who use arms wrongly in the process of actually using it to kill and terrorize our sisters, our children, and everybody else. We intend that our armed struggle will be for the benefit of us as a people, for the future of our great-grandchildren, for a peaceful, strong, and developed Africa. Comrades, thank you very much. And as Brother Kwame stated very well, we actually, Brother Kwame, you can be able to share our contacts in the chat. People are asking the contacts on how they can reach out to us, but that can be shared. We actually look forward to this Saturday unification, where we are hosting the Africa Liberation Day. We'll be doing it on 24th. Of course, other events are going on from 25th. There are others starting from 23rd in other groups. We'll always share this. So get in touch with us, the contact that will be shared, so that we share with you all events that will be going on from other organizations and ourselves as well. We are looking forward to discuss the Africa Liberation in the context of our women as well. But we're looking forward to key topics. Brother Kwame, you've told me you've shared the topics. Let me check. The key topics. Okay.
The topic for next week. Have you seen it?
I'm trying to look at it, which is basically
coordinating defense strategies.
Next week is Africa Liberation Day.
In that case, talk about that. And just so you know, I have put in the chat the link to our WhatsApp group. Anybody who wants to contact us can join and contact us through there.
Yes, and those who want to get in touch with me, feel free to get in touch with me. We are looking at key issues that we'll be discussing on the next Africa Liberation Day include the colonial lie we call nations. How do we dismantle these so-called nations? Second aspect we'll be looking at Africa Liberation Day is beyond coups and ballots. What is the way forward? How do we change the rulers in colonial system in all this? We are also looking at the patriarchy as imperialism weapon against our agenda. And the last thing we'll be discussing is the unfinished revolution. From Sankara assassinations to the today compromise struggles was the way forward. So these are conversations we're looking forward to have in our Africa Liberation Day event that will take place on 24th. So those who are willing to get in touch with us, please feel free. I always circulate these notifications. We have a broadcast list, so you can always get a personalized text to remind you about our class, to remind you about any other meetings that are done by some other Pan-African organization that we share across, so that you can actually get in touch and join the conversation. So I'm sharing my contact as well, apart from also our WhatsApp group. Feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you very much for your time, and we really look forward to have more conversation, and we look forward to the total unification of Africa. Back to you, Brother Kwame.
Yes, Brother Pigeon, that is it. So we thank everyone for coming. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all. We actually apologize for limiting the ability to unmute yourself just for safety measures as well.